we be seated? Your Excellency.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first day of a two-day Ministerial Performance Review Retreat for ministers, permanent secretaries, and top government functionaries holding right here at the banquet hall of the State House in Abuja. In attendance at this event are the head of the civil service, permanent secretaries, and many top government officials. They're going to be talking for the next 2 days on the 9-point agenda of the Buhari administration and how the ministries have fared in that regard. We're going to be hearing from a lot of speakers throughout this two-day event, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair, who's expected to be here today. The event is going to be declared open by the Vice President shortly. Now, this two-day retreat is supposed to create transparency on the status of the implementation of the policies and programs of government and provide a roadmap towards the delivery of government's 9-priority agenda, which was promised at the start of this second phase of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Well, it's also going to be an opportunity for ministers and other participants to deepen their understanding on the best practices towards ensuring effective delivery on government business in the next 3 years.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to the first year Ministerial Performance Review Retreat. About a year and 2 weeks ago, we were in this very hall for a retreat immediately after ministers were appointed. Now, a year and 2 months later, it is fitting that a performance review be held. And that is why we are here. Today and tomorrow, by the grace of God. We are going to have the objectives and context setting of this event that will last for 2 days. And it's my pleasure to now invite the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, to do just that for us. SGF, please.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, members of the Federal Executive Council, the Chief of Staff to the President, former secretaries to the government of the Federation, permanent secretaries, heads of agencies and departments, our resource persons that are on Zoom, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this important occasion of the first year Ministerial Performance Review Retreat, holding today at the State House Conference Center in the city of Abuja. As you are aware, a presidential retreat was held in August 2019 for ministers designate, permanent secretaries, and top government functionaries. The retreat was designed to prepare and synthesize cabinet members on the status of policies, programs, and projects of government and the roadmap towards the delivery of its priority and next level agenda for 2019-2023. At the end of the retreat, the 43 newly appointed ministers were sworn in, and each assigned priority projects across the President's 9 priority areas to deliver within their 4 years in office. Over the course of the past 12 months, the ministers have implemented priority projects assigned to them and presented their ministerial performance reports to the Federal Executive Council. This retreat is expected to provide opportunity for us as a government to review the first year report of the ministerial mandates with respect to the commitment to deliver on the 9 priority areas of this administration. It is also designed to allow for transparency on the status of implementation of policies, programs, and projects of the government and the roadmap towards the delivery of the 9 priority agenda of this administration. Specifically, at this retreat, we will review the performance of each ministry and minister in delivering the priority projects assigned to them upon their appointment in 2019, identify key impediments to implementation, and re-strategize on how to deliver on the priority areas moving forward, taking into cognizance key underlying factors that have affected performance and delivery. The retreat has been structured into 3 main sessions. The first session is a ministerial performance review to identify improvement opportunities. The second session will cover key learning from other jurisdictions, which will be anchored by our external speakers. One of them, a former UK Prime Minister and a chief economist of the World Bank, and a senior partner of McKinsey, who leads public finance work in Africa, Eastern and Middle East. And the third session will focus on strategy to accelerate execution and delivery. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, let me quickly remind us that as the President's aides, our legacies will lie in how much we are able to deliver on this administration promises to Nigerians, which include lifting 100 million people out of poverty in the next 10 years. It is our duty to join the President in providing the leadership required to develop Nigeria and lift the bulk of its people out of poverty. Let me also reiterate that the task of governance requires dedication and total commitment to the social contract we have entered with the Nigerian people, especially in realization of the yearnings for quick delivery of the dividends of democracy to the people. As part of the efforts towards ensuring effective implementation of government's priorities, ministerial mandates were developed and signed by all ministers and their permanent secretaries using a uniform reporting template developed by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. It is reassuring to note that ministers cascaded the mandates to their respective CEOs of parastatals under their ministries. This was followed by the presentation of the performance of key activities and deliverables of all ministries along the 9 priority areas as specified in the ministerial mandates. The reporting exercise was subsequently conducted between December 18, 2019 and July 22, 2020, covering all the 28 ministries and the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. Let me acknowledge upfront that the last 1 year has been most productive. I have worked closely with ministers with respect to ensuring effective coordination of the formulation and implementation of policies, programs, and projects. My office has received and scheduled most of your memoranda, inclusive of policies, project, contracts, and presentation of ministerial review reports for the consideration of Council. As at September 2, 2020, The number of memoranda, briefs, and notes processed by the Cabinet Affairs Office stood at 282, while Council had considered and approved 191 memorandum, briefs, and notes. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is worthy to note that out of the 191 memorandum, briefs, and notes, 50 were policy-related, with 128 as project contracts and 15 council briefs and notes. We have also provided technical support in form of training to all ministries towards improving their capacity in the area of cabinet documentation and processing. While acknowledging that we have been unable to effectively track and monitor fake approved policies, projects, and programs as earlier envisaged due to the lockdown arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, I assure you that the process will be accelerated by our delivery unit in the coming months. In preparation for this retreat, a ministerial self-assessment template was completed by all ministries. This had helped in facilitating the analysis of the performance of ministerial mandates. I am pleased to note that the self-assessment reports have been validated by the Office of the Secretary to the Government and its technical partners through engagement with the ministers. The report of the analysis and the synthesization of the assessment and the review of ministerial performance reports will be presented tomorrow during the technical session of the retreat. The technical sessions for this retreat have been designed to focus on the following thematic areas. 1, overview of economic sustainability plan and imperatives for success. 2, experience sharing on driving growth in a crisis, lessons learned and delivery. 3, first year scorecard and summary of ministerial MDA performance, independent assessment. 4, reflection on ministerial performance. 5, delivering the presidential legacy, a collective responsibility. And 6, managing relationships between ministers and permanent secretaries / CEOs or parastatals to accelerate delivery. 7, vision in the future, review of key priorities, targets, and the presidential legacy for the next 2 years. Dealing with economy, infrastructure, fighting corruption, and security. 8, delivering government agenda, the imperative of revenue mobilization and enhancement. And 9, panel session on collaborating to deliver. There will also be breakout sessions along the 9 priority areas to review our ministerial priorities, execution requirements, and enablers, including revenue enhancement. The retreat will be rounded up with a renewed focus on execution, making it happen, lessons learned, improvement plans, updated targets, and key next steps. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this retreat is very important, and participants are urged to accord priority to the deliberations. The outcome of the retreat is expected to pave way to accelerating the delivery of government policies, projects, and programs in the coming years. Let me therefore reiterate that much is expected of us as ministers, permanent secretaries, and heads of strategic government agencies. I'm looking forward to our working together over these next 2 days, and thereafter I encourage you to participate actively in all sessions of the retreat, to ask questions, contribute your perspective, and also think critically about what you hear at this retreat and how it will shape the way we work over the next 30 months. In closing, Your Excellency, I implore us to observe all necessary social distancing and safety protocols put in place to ensure we conduct all activities in line with the COVID-19 protocols that have been ably put even on the screen this morning. Let me, on behalf of ministers and other cabinet members, use this opportunity to once again thank His Excellency, President Muhammad Buhari, for finding us worthy to serve the nation in different capacities at this critical period of our national existence. Once again, I welcome you all to this very important retreat and wish us all successful deliberations. I thank you for your kind attention.
That was the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, setting the context for this retreat that will last today and tomorrow. His Excellency, the President, is away attending the 57th session of the Economic Community of West African States in Niger Republic, and to take the President's opening speech here this morning is His Excellency, the Vice President. After he takes that speech, the media will be required to pull out, and we'll have a 5-minute musical break while they do that. At this point, it's my pleasure to invite His Excellency, the Vice President.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And just as you've heard, the President is away in Niger for the ECOWAS Summit this morning. So I have the special honor and responsibility to read his speech. Secretary to Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, CFR. The Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi Esson. National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongunu, retired. Honorable Ministers present, Permanent Secretaries, Heads of Government Agencies and Parastatals. The Panel Chair, former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and former Head of Service of the Federation, Alhaji Yayale Ahmed. Former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Ambassador Babagana Kingibe. The World Bank Chief Economist for Africa, Dr. Albert G. Ziufak. Distinguished resource persons, facilitating consultants, Dr. Kunle Lebute and Mr. Umaru Abu. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the first-year Ministerial Performance Review Retreat. We are meeting at a time that mankind is struggling to overcome the economic and social crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted life as we knew it. The consequences of the pandemic will no doubt influence our deliberations at this gathering, especially as we'll have to adjust our policy approaches and some methods of working going forward. I stressed at last year's retreat that the Nigerian people expect dedication and commitment from all of us in implementing policies, programs, and projects to improve the quality of their lives and to set Nigeria on the path of prosperity. I also reiterated the resolve of this administration to set the stage for lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. Even today, these remain our overriding objectives. The priorities we set for ourselves were around 9 interrelated and interconnected areas, which are stabilizing the economy, achieving agriculture and food security, attaining energy sufficiency in power and petroleum products, improving transportation and other infrastructure, driving industrialization with a special focus on SMEs, expanding access to quality education, affordable healthcare, and productivity of Nigerians, enhancing social inclusion by scaling up social investments as well as building a system to fight corruption, improving governance and strengthening national security. In the course of the past year, ministers have rendered reports to the Federal Executive Council on their activities and outputs related to the achievement of these objectives. I chaired all of the meetings of these presentations. Some of the notable achievements include: 1, economic recovery. Prior to the outbreak of COVID-19, the economy recovered from a recession and we witnessed 11 consecutive quarters of GDP growth since exiting recession. The GDP grew from 0.8% in 2017 to 2.2% in 2019, but declined in the first quarter of 2020 as a result of the downward trend in global economic activities caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. 2, implementation of a willing buyer, willing seller policy for the power sector. This has opened up opportunities for increased delivery of electricity to homes and industries. We are also executing some crucial projects through the Transmission, Rehabilitation and Expansion Program, which will result in the transmission and distribution of over 11,000 megahertz of power by 2023. On transportation, we are growing the stock and quality of our roads, rail, air, and water transport infrastructure. The Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund is also progressing well. These include the 11.9-kilometer Second Niger Bridge, the 120-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and 375-kilometer Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway. At the same time, we are actively extending and upgrading our railway networks, as well as our airports, which are being raised to international standards, with the provision of necessary equipment to guarantee world-class safety standards. The government has continued to support the agricultural sector, the key to diversification of our economy through schemes such as the CBN Anchor Borrowers Program and Presidential Fertilizer Initiative Program. The work of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC, has also resulted in Nigeria moving up 39 places on the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking since 2015, and Nigeria is now rated as one of the top 10 reforming economies. We are confident that the ongoing ease of doing business reforms would result in further improvement of these ratings. Nigeria's law enforcement agencies have significantly scaled up their footprint across the country. And as part of the efforts towards strengthening our internal security architecture, the Ministerial Police Affairs was created. Amongst others, we have increased investments in arms, in weapons, and other necessary equipment, expanded the National Command and Control Center to 19 states of the Federation, and we've established a Nigeria Police Trust Fund. This will significantly improve funding for the Nigeria Police Force. We've also approved the sum of 13.3 billion for the takeoff of the Community Policing Initiative across the country. These are all part of measures adopted to consolidate efforts aimed at boosting security nationwide. Efforts are also being made to empower the youth and provide for the poor and vulnerable groups by enhancing investments in our social investment programs. These accomplishments are a testament to the fact that all hands are on deck in establishing a solid foundation for even greater successes in the future. Honorable ministers and distinguished participants, when we met 1 year ago, little did we know that the world will be in a serious economic, social, and health crisis that has left even the major economies of the world in disarray due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Just as in other jurisdictions, the socio-economic landscape of Nigeria has experienced a severe shock. Nearly 55,000 of our people have been infected with the virus, while we've recorded 1,054 deaths by the 4th of September. The economy contracted by -6.1% in the second quarter of this year. Normal schooling has been disrupted, businesses are struggling, and in certain instances completely closed. Many people have lost their jobs and their means of livelihood. For so many Nigerians, making a living has become extremely difficult. It has also been a trying time for Nigerians, and particularly for those in the informal sector who make their living from daily earnings. For government also, it has been a particularly trying time. As a result of the poor fortunes of the oil sector, our revenues and foreign exchange earnings have fallen drastically. Our revenues have fallen by almost 60%. Yet we've had to sustain expenditures, especially on salaries and capital projects. We acted to mitigate the effect of the economic slowdown by adopting an economic sustainability plan. But we've also had to take some difficult decisions to stop unsustainable practices that were weighing down the economy. The 2.3 trillion economic sustainability plan consists of fiscal, monetary, and sectoral measures to enhance local production, support businesses, retain and create jobs, and provide succor to Nigerians, especially the most vulnerable. In addition to improving the health sector, the plan lays emphasis on labor-intensive interventions in agriculture, in light manufacturing, in housing, and facilities management. It also complements ongoing major infrastructural projects in power, road, and rail by prioritizing the building of rural roads, information and telecommunications technologies, as well as providing solar power to homes which were not hitherto connected to the national grid. Alongside interventions in these critical areas, including agriculture and food security, affordable housing, technology, health, and providing jobs for youths and women post-COVID, the plan will also provide different avenues where government will support micro, small, and medium enterprises to enable them respond to the economic challenges of COVID-19. This includes safeguarding about 300,000 jobs in 100,000 MSMEs by guaranteeing offtake of their priority products, and a survival fund to support vulnerable SMEs in designated vulnerable sectors in meeting their payroll obligations and safeguarding jobs from the shock of COVID-19. Under the ESP, the MSMEs component, both the survival fund or the payroll support and the guaranteed offtake scheme are to impact about 1.7 million individuals within a 3 to 5 month timeline. Also, 45% of total business beneficiaries will be female-owned businesses, and 5% of total business beneficiaries will be dedicated to special needs business owners. In addition, under the Survival Fund, the payroll support scheme, 250,000 new business names are to be registered at a discounted rate of 6,000 naira by the CAC. But this will be free for MSMEs, while 330,000 transport workers and artisans will get a one-time grant. Following an MOU to be signed by BOI and the federal government, the total beneficiaries for the Survival Fund scheme are about 33,000 beneficiaries per state. Every state will have 33,000 beneficiaries of the Survival Fund scheme with a minimum payroll support of 30,000 naira and a maximum of 50,000 naira. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to a severe downturn in the funds available to finance our budget and has severely hampered our capacity. One of the steps we took at the beginning of the crisis in March, when oil prices collapsed at the height of the global lockdown, was the deregulation of the price of premium motor spirit, such that the benefit of lower prices at the time was passed on to consumers. This was welcomed by all and sundry. The effect of the deregulation is that pump prices of petrol will change with changes in global oil prices. This means, quite regrettably, that as oil prices go higher, we could see some increases in pump price. This is what has happened now. When global prices rose, it meant that the price of petrol locally would also go up. There are several negative consequences if government should even attempt to go back to the business of fixing or subsidizing petroleum prices, or PMS prices. First of all, it will mean a return to the costly subsidy regime. Today, as we've heard, we have 60% less revenues. We simply cannot afford the cost. The second danger is the potential return of fuel queues, which has thankfully become a thing of the past. Nigerians no longer have to endure long queues just to buy petrol, often at highly inflated prices. Also, as I hinted earlier, there is no provision for fuel subsidy in the revised 2020 budget, simply because we are not able to afford such a cost. If reasonable provisions must be made for health, education, and other social services, we simply cannot sustain petroleum subsidies. Nevertheless, I want to assure our compatriots that Nigeria is extremely mindful of that the government is extremely mindful of the pains that higher prices may mean at this time, and we do not take the sacrifices that all Nigerians have had to make for granted. We will continue to seek ways and means of cushioning the pains, especially for the most vulnerable in our midst. We will also remain alert to our responsibility to ensure that marketers do not exploit citizens by raising pump price arbitrarily. This is the role that government must play through the PPRA. This explains why the PPRA made the announcement a few days ago, setting the range of price that must not be exceeded by marketers. The advantage we have now is that anyone can bring in their petroleum products and compete with marketers. That way, the price of petrol will keep coming down. The recent service-based tariff adjustment by the DISCOs has also been a source of concern for many of us. Let me say frankly that, like many Nigerians, I've been very unhappy about the quality of service given by the DISCOs. But there are many constraints, including poor transmission and distribution capacity. I've already signed off on the first phase of the Siemens project to address many of these issues. Because of the problems with the privatization exercise, government had to keep supporting the largely privatized electricity industry. So far, to keep the industry going, we have spent close to 1.7 trillion naira, especially by way of supplementing tariff shortfalls. We simply do not have the resources at this point to continue in this way, and it will be grossly irresponsible to borrow to subsidize generation and distribution, which are both privatized. But we also have a duty to ensure that the large majority of our people who cannot afford to pay cost-effective tariffs are protected from increases. NERC, the industry regulator, therefore approved that tariff adjustments had to be made, but only on the basis of guaranteed improvement in service. Under this new arrangement, only customers who are guaranteed a minimum of 12 hours of power and above can have their tariffs adjusted. Those who get less than 12 hours supply, or the band D and E and F customers, must be maintained on lifeline tariffs, meaning that they will experience no increase in their tariffs. This is the largest segment of our population. Government has also taken notice of the complaints about arbitrary estimated billing. Accordingly, a mass metering program is being undertaken to provide meters for over 5 million Nigerians, largely driven by preferred procurement from local manufacturers and creating thousands of jobs in the process. NERC has also committed to strictly enforcing the capping regulation, which will ensure that unmetered customers are not charged beyond the metered customers in their neighborhood. In other words, we will not permit estimated billing anymore. In addressing the power problems, we must not forget that most Nigerians are not even connected to electricity at all. So as part of the economic sustainability plan, we are providing solar home systems to 5 million Nigerian households in the next 12 months. We have already begun the process of providing financing support through the CBN for manufacturers and retailers of off-grid solar home systems and mini-grids who are to provide the systems. The 5 million systems under the ESP solar power strategy will produce 250,000 jobs and impact up to 25 million beneficiaries through the installation. This means that more Nigerians will have access to electricity via a reliable and sustainable solar home system. The support to solar home systems manufacturers and bulk procurement of local meters will create over 300,000 local jobs, while ensuring that we set Nigeria on a path of full electrification. The tariff review is not about the increase, which will only affect the top electricity consumers, but also about establishing a system which will definitely lead to improved service for all at a fair and reasonable price. There has been some concern expressed about the timing of these two necessary adjustments. It's important to stress that this is coincidental. The deregulation of PMS prices happened some time ago. It was announced on the 18th of March 2020, and the price moderation that took place at the beginning of this month was just part of the ongoing exercise that the PPRA conducts to set the limits that marketers cannot exceed. Similarly, the review of service-based electricity tariffs was scheduled to start at the beginning of July, but was put on hold to enable further studies and proper arrangements to be made. This government is not insensitive to the current economic difficulties our people are going through and the very tough economic situation we face as a nation. And we certainly will not inflict hardship on our people. But we are convinced that if we stay focused on our plans, a brighter and more prosperous Nigeria will come soon. Ministers and senior officials must accordingly ensure the vigorous and prompt implementation of all our plans and programs which will give succor to Nigerians. In this regard, the Central Bank of Nigeria has created credit facilities of up to 100 billion for healthcare and manufacturing. For healthcare is 100 billion, for manufacturing 1 trillion. From January 2020 to date, over 191 billion naira has already been disbursed for 76 real sector projects under the 1 trillion real sector scheme, while 34 healthcare projects have been funded to the tune of 37.159 billion naira. under the Healthcare Sector Intervention Facility. The facilities are meant to address some of the infrastructural gaps in the healthcare and manufacturing sector as a fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to facilitate the attainment of the 5-year strategic plan. Distinguished participants, to address our current economic challenges and consolidate our achievements over the past year, this retreat has been designed to, 1, review the performance of each minister in delivering the priority mandates, including programs and projects assigned to them upon their appointment in 2019, to identify key impediments to implementation, and 3, to re-strategize on how to accelerate delivery of results given the current economic situation. The retreat would also provide the opportunity to effectively evaluate the activities of ministries over the last 12 months with regard to the delivery of our agenda and promise to Nigerians. Ministers are urged to work closely with permanent secretaries to ensure accelerated and effective delivery of policies, programs, and projects in the priority areas. I've also directed the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to intensify efforts at deepening the work of the delivery unit under his coordination towards ensuring effective delivery of government policies, programs, and projects in the coming months. It is also my expectation that progress on the performance of the implementation of 9 priority areas will be reported on a regular basis. In closing, I encourage optimal participation and contribution by all participants while observing all the necessary safety protocols and compliance with COVID-19 guidelines. On this note, it is my pleasure to formally declare the retreat open. I look forward to very fruitful sessions and stimulating exchange of views. Thank you very much. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.